Once upon a time, in a land far, far away, lived a beautiful countess. The countess hated to see young maidens in and near her land suffering, so she invited the young maidens to her estates and offered them work and etiquette training, so that they may live a better life with the hope that in time the maidens could catch the eye of an upperclassman. The countess was fair and true to her word. Most of the young maidens were able to marry off, and those who were not chose to stay in the employ of the countess, and they all lived happily ever after. Is what I would tell you if that was what the fuck we were about. But we're not. So sit up, HMFP fam, as we take a dive into the deep pools of blood left behind from the reign of terror of Elizabeth Bathory, also known as the Blood Countess.
It's evil! Don't touch it!
It's alive!
I was with you.
They're coming to get you. Power of Grayskull. This is
Me?
Hello, Mr. Fancy Pants.
Hello. How's it going?
Timing.
Welcome back to Hello, Mr. Fancy Pants, where we like to talk about shit we know nothing about. Well, except for Lindy. What's going on, Matt? You doing all right this week?
I'm doing good. How are you doing?
I'm fucking tired, but other than that, life is grand. How about you, Lindy? You doing all right?
I am doing all right. Exhausted, but doing all right.
Well, yeah, that's normal. I mean, podcasting's hard work.
We never sleep.
Never sleep.
Oh, yeah. When I signed on for this, I didn't realize that it meant never sleep again, but here we are.
Yeah. 9:10. 9:10, just like Freddie. Never sleep again.
Pretty sure I addressed it too earlier when we had started doing this. I was like, I just thought I'd watch a doc or read a book and get on here and just talk about it, but that is not how it works.
No.
I will forget
not quite.
everything.
Yeah. So I had no idea that it changed so many hands, like Hungary, like between the Turks and everything. When I did my research, I had no idea. I mean, I knew it was kind of tied into Vlad the Impaler, but I didn't realize how closely it was tied and how short a period it was from that period that Elizabeth Bathory, or however you want to pronounce her name. All the docs I saw were like Elizabeth Bathory.
Yeah, I think however anybody wants to say her name is just good at this point because there's a million different pronunciations here.
And I also figured out that this chick would have to kill like 7 or 8 small girls if she did bathe in blood, because I'm talking about like how many pints of blood are in the human body versus how many pints are in a gallon, which is how many gallons go into a regular sized bath. That's a lot of virgins per bath.
That's a lot.
What a
of
waste.
We're going to talk about that.
It's the price you pay to stay young and beautiful. It's totally
Wow.
worth it.
Maybe it's Maybelline. Sorry.
It's virgin's blood.
Maybe it's split of her virgins.
Virgin blood.
I smell a commercial.
Yeah, I smell a commercial coming on too. Well, Lindy, take it away.
Okay. I used the book Infamous Lady, The True Story of Countess Elizabeth Bathory, second edition by Kimberly L. Craft.
Is she crafty?
She's pretty crafty. Yeah, she got a hold of a lot of stuff. If you want to go further into this than I did, then like if you want to know a ton about the history of all of the families involved, and like you were talking about the exchanging of hands of countries and kings and religions and all of that, it's
Seemed pretty constant.
it's very detailed in the book. I tried to stick to the
murder
information about the torture and the murder.
mayhem.
So I didn't do a lot of the history, but I did go through some of it. So, but I didn't get into any of the changing of hands of countries or anything like that. So
Too many names. Too many.
Yeah.
So much
Yeah.
stuff that's hard to pronounce. It's crazy.
I also used for the names that I could, I translated them into English instead of using the Hungarian
Oh,
spellings.
you weren't gonna try to butcher that shit?
Yeah.
No. I mean, I'm still gonna butcher this shit. So I apologize to anyone who may be listening that is still a descendant of these families. But I'm about to slaughter your
Then
names.
maybe we try to butcher the shit for you.
Butcher and
okay?
slaughter are appropriate terms.
Yes.
Very much. So Elizabeth Bathory was born into a prestigious noble family on August 7th, 1560 in Ekid, Hungary. She was born into the times of religious tensions, Reformation, the Turkish invasion, and the maturation of the Renaissance era.
I was gonna say right there at the beginning of the Renaissance, where it was okay to send a woman off to school to learn.
Yes, yeah, actually, she was highly educated and was trained in the classics, mathematics. She could read and write in Hungarian, Greek, Latin, and Slavic.
In German,
Oh, I didn't read that,
yeah, in
but
German.
probably. She was very interested in her own in religion, occultism, and sciences, which included astronomy, botany, biology, and anatomy. Being born into a noble family meant attending several high-end social gatherings that she loathed. When she would have to attend one of these gatherings, she was known to go into fits of rage, which could also bring on seizures that she was known to have as a child. And she was also known in her youth to be a tomboy, except when it was necessary to dress and act like a lady. So she really didn't love doing the lady thing.
Right. What now? You said seizures. Now, more than likely, she was an epileptic,
Mm-hmm.
because she suffered from these seizures her whole life, right?
Yes.
But at the time, it was just like considered to be like the work of witchcraft or some such shit, right?
Yes.
How simple the times were. Oh, you're sick? Must be a witch.
Must be a witch. Let's burn her.
Exactly. There's some of that here too. So in 1571, at the age of 11, she was engaged to 16-year-old Frances Nodesy. And in 1572, she was sent to live in the care of her soon-to-be mother-in-law so that she could learn the ways of the household, as she would need to be able to run the house properly once it was hers. And shortly before she arrived, or just after she arrived, it's really conflicting. Lady Ursula passed away, which was Frances's mom, which left Elizabeth unsupervised with not a whole lot to do. So it's rumored that during this time, Elizabeth had either fallen in love with or she was abducted and raped by Laszlo Bendy. She ended up giving birth to a female child, and they're just not really sure what happened to the child. It is speculated. It is
Fucking
speculated that the child was sent somewhere else, just to a neighboring land, and was provided for by the family for its whole life, but was not raised in the house.
If I have to guess, back in the day, whether she fell in love or was abducted or raped was probably both her fault. Basically,
It could essentially have been the same thing back then.
Yeah. Now, what happened to old Laszlo, though? I mean,
The book doesn't really go into what happened with him. They said that Frances was pissed and cut off, certain parts of his body and threw it in the river. Other people said nothing happened.
he got bobatized.
So, yeah, he got bobatized.
he got traumatized. Yeah.
To the tiny guillotine.
Knowing what I know about the husband, I'm going with he probably cut off his penis.
Yeah.
Tossed it in the river in front of his face.
Yep.
You all right,
It
Matt?
still
You look a
hurts.
little uncomfortable.
He deserves it, but it still hurts to hear.
Yeah. I don't know
Yeah.
about that.
I did a story about torture on young girls. Trust me, half of this is hard for me to read. It's
Yeah.
gotta make you
I was-
uncomfortable a little bit.
I was really surprised when you decided you want to do probably one of she's probably the most prolific serial killer in all of
Ultra.
history. I mean, she's got a scorecard that gets up to like possibly 650, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And I would say that 99% of her victims were all young girls.
Yes. Yeah.
So-
in all of this, I could only find 2 that weren't.
Yeah, they were like middle-aged women.
Hmm.
Yeah. Crazy shit.
So Francis and Elizabeth married on May 8th, 1575, in a massive event that lasted several days. It began with a jousting tournament that Francis himself took part in. And once he won the tournament, he met with Elizabeth in a festivities tent where he presented her with her wedding gifts, which was the Castle Chetty and its 17 accompanying villages.
That's a nice castle. Did your mom pick it out for you? Your mom get it for you?
Times are hard. Here's your castle and 17 villages.
Right. Jesus.
In those times, there was actually kind of a cute thing. There was a ritual to prove the love of the groom. So ladies would cover themselves completely and then imitate the bride, attempting to fool the groom, and he would have to decide who his true bride was. Francis was able to pick Elizabeth out immediately. And then there was the not so fun part that once the ceremony was complete, the couple would be escorted to the bridal chamber, and members of the groom's party would wait outside the door until the marriage was consummated.
High-fiving and drinking and having
Yeah.
I'm assuming, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They just had to make sure that the marriage was consummated the same evening as the actual ceremony took place.
They had, and I'm sure those
Rules
doors were
is rules. Rules.
Rock
is
Rules
solid.
is rules.
they couldn't look in, and I know dudes.
Yeah. In the book, there's actually in the book there's a funny like carving of everybody standing over the bed watching them
Yeah,
Oh, wow.
instead of being
probably
outside
closer.
the door. So yeah.
I'd have been out there, stick a finger in his ass. He loves it.
I mean,
Name it your firstborn. It's fine. Elizabeth did also choose to keep her last name since it was older and more prestigious.
Yep.
So Francis was highly trained and skilled in military, and he was constantly called away. And in his absence, Elizabeth would run all of their estates, deal with their political dealings, and do basically everything that was supposed to be performed by the count.
I have a very particular set of skills. I'm going to find
There
you.
you go.
I'm going to kill you. May not be today, but soon. Oh, sorry. This is what popped in my head as soon as you were saying.
It's Marge. Keep going. You're nailing that accent pretty good.
Oh.
So it took 10 years after they were married for the couple to be able to become pregnant, but daughter Anna was born around 1585. Then daughter Ursula is believed to have been born around 1950 or 1590. Sorry, I'm messing up dates there. Daughter Catalin, Cata for short, was born around 1594. Andrew was born in 1596, and Paul was born in 1597 or 98.
Holy shit! They didn't. I mean, when they started getting busy, they didn't
kept
waste any
going.
time. It was just like boom, boom, boom. Baby factory time.
Yes.
3 girls and 2 boys.
So 3 of the children survived. Andrew passed away in 1603 at the age of 7, and Ursula had passed by 1610, but nobody knows exactly when she died. And it's reported that she died from an infection in her mouth.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
Every
so, like-
fucking time Lindy does an episode, there's dead kids in it. Every fucking time.
God, why do you always gotta bring up dead
100%,
kids?
100% batting average as of now. Every episode.
Now I'm going to have to make it a thing.
No,
There's-
you don't.
At least these kids weren't murdered.
That you know of.
That you know of. I was going to say the same thing.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong. I was not there. So in the years 1585 to 1604, reports of death were starting to come in. One night, a young girl suddenly passed away, and when the pastor arrived, the body was already sealed in a casket. It was explained to him that the young girl had passed away from cholera, and the Countess did not want a panic to break out over the matter. So that was why it was,
No need to investigate.
right?
Move along.
Nothing
Don't
to
open
say,
that
eh?
Just,
Move along.
just take me at my word.
One dead girl.
Here we go. If you're gonna do that 600 sometimes, this is gonna be crazy.
Another night, the clergy was summoned, and they so it was a very large sealed casket that had been taken to the church for the burial. It was believed by the clergy members that there had to have been at least 3 bodies inside. The pastor questioned the countess, and she informed him that it was 2 bodies. When they had ordered the casket, one girl had already passed, and another was not far off. So they waited for that girl to pass, and then they laid them in the casket together. The clergymen were also advised, really warned more, that it was not a good idea to question the countess again.
Oh wow.
And then,
Which would be like, so there's actually 2 in there, but one's a really big girl. So if you're thinking there's 3, that's why, because she's a bit girthy. The second one.
Okay, so well, that wouldn't be the if they're. I mean, basically they were servants, right? So I'm picturing them already scrawny and malnourished. Now drain them of blood. How many could you fit in a casket before it got heavy?
Well, it depends, Matt. I mean, this goes back to the how many dead babies can you fit in a barrel?
I thought that was supposed to be monkeys.
No, it's babies. It's babies.
Oh, okay.
Not if you want to make people laugh. One dead baby in a barrel, or one dead baby in 10 barrel.
Yes. That's the end of it. Yeah, I didn't do it. You did it, but.
So what began as an isolated incident seemed to turn into an increasing stream of bodies wherever the countess went. This caused rumors, and Pastor Stephen Moderay confronted the countess during his sermon. He demanded that the body of the most recently deceased be exhumed for proof of her claims. He also wrote a letter to another pastor for guidance, informing him that he believed the countess and their servant Anna Dervoila were torturing young girls, and he wanted them to be excommunicated. The pastor, Stephen, was informed that he should not be bringing negative attention to the Nadas and Bator families, as they were the biggest supporters and income source.
Yeah, and say they were fucking loaded. So
Yes.
they pretty much took care of everything.
Everything for
So-
several counties.
Yeah.
So Elizabeth was taught how to torture by her husband and Anna. However, Francis did not want attention brought to them, so he would stop short of killing people. And for him, this was not pleasure, but it was just part of life in those days. Peasants who lived and worked on lands owned by nobility were considered property, so there were no real legal implications to what they were doing to the servants. And the royal crown owed the family a shit ton of money.
Because he was good. Because he had a particular set of skills.
Very particular set of skills, yes. Yeah. So the crown just ignored the allegations at the time.
Sure.
That's how you do it.
Yeah.
Yep.
You buy it. Francis became ill and passed away on January 4th, 1604, in a time of war. So once he had passed, the war started to affect the Bator lands, and soldiers were commandeering properties and laying waste to the land and livestock. And then during this time, Elizabeth also received news that her brother, who she was very close to, had passed away. So she assembled a team to make the trip to her family's estate at Ekid. And they believed that the news of her brother so soon after her husband, along with the wartime stress and being alone and vulnerable, caused Elizabeth to mentally snap.
She had a bit of a breakdown there, did she?
Just a bit, yeah. On the journey to her family estate, she tortured 3 of her handmaids so badly that they died. On the return trip, she... What?
3. Yeah.
3.
She was so upset. I have to be
Just 3 this time. Just 3 this time. On the return trip, she tortured another one who also died.
Yeah.
So eventually a peace treaty was reached, and the war ended, but the destruction left behind was massive. And the Countess had to restore several of their estates and the surrounding land. At the time, she was also battling with her family and the royal crown over properties left her in her brother's will and funds owed to her from the crown. During all of this, she was called to a wedding that she attended for her cousin's daughter, which required several days of travel. And as you recall, Elizabeth super hated traveling.
Yeah.
So the trip with the Countess was unbearable, and the following is an eyewitness.
She was tough to be around.
No,
Is that what you're implying?
never. I mean, to me, so far, it sounds like she was pretty sweet. She gave everybody money. She restored lands.
Killed a bunch of girls. I mean, what else could you ask?
So the following is an eyewitness account from the trip home. The person wrote, irritable and peevish after the wedding, drumming her fingers angrily as she thought about how much cash had been spent on gifts for Torzor's daughter. The Countess was already in a foul mood. Meanwhile, pressed uncomfortably in the carriage amidst her attending maids and their piles of gowns, tresses, and furs, one of the new, younger girls started to complain. She was cold, thirsty, and had to relieve herself. The Countess's hand turned white as she gripped the handrail. The girl continued to prattle on, chatting and complaining, ignorant of how black Elizabeth's eyes were becoming and how the more senior attendants were now looking away nervously. Suddenly, the Countess lashed out, grabbing the girl's wrist and twisting it violently. As she cried out in pain, Elizabeth screamed at her, so you're cold, you're thirsty, you're miserable. You little whore, I'll give you something to drink. As she began crying, the Countess struck her violently, pulling her by the hair and clawing at her face. The carriage began to slow as the girl's cries were heard by the coachman. You need to piss, do you? The Countess continued to twist her arm as the girl writhed and tried to wriggle away. Grabbing for the door, she suddenly managed to break free, nearly falling on her face as she fell from the coach. The driver pulled the carriage to a halt as the sobbing girl frantically collected up her garments and struggled to run from the road. Go after her, Elizabeth demanded. Her coachman and the attendants immediately jumped to the ground, giving chase. As they dragged the crying and kicking girl back, the Countess looked on livid. You will pay for this, she hissed at the girl, I promise you that. The girl was bound and gagged, and Elizabeth gave the driver brief instructions. The carriage set off again, and the moody silence that followed made the attendants even more nervous. Meanwhile, the younger girl, still bound and gagged, hoped briefly that the Countess's anger had abated. Just outside the nearby town of Predmere, the coach slowed and then stopped near the river. The Countess turned to her young attendant. So you're thirsty, she mused, looking out the window. You're cold. You have to piss. She reached out and took the girl's chin in her hand. Are you still thirsty, dear? Tears began to well up in the child's eyes, and she shook her head. No, Elizabeth raised an eye. Oh, I think you are. The girl was then stripped naked in the December cold and forced into the river. She was made to stand up to her neck in water and was repeatedly doused. She was then taken back to the castle, and she later died of exposure.
Wow. Why do you always have to pick this shit, Lindsay?
Every
God.
time. Every fucking time.
Lindy.
Every time.
Well, here's, you don't sit and bitch and complain to an angrier than normal Elizabeth. An even angrier Elizabeth.
That's not a good idea.
I think on her best day, she's mad at all times. It's just,
Yeah, sounds like it.
Pretty much. Don't worry, it gets worse.
I know. I don't remember that in my research, but all my research came from an album called Dusk and Her Embrace by Cradle of Filth. So that wasn't that. Part wasn't.
They're coming. I'm going, actually. Very soon. So.
24.
We're up somewhere around there now, I think. Months later, the Countess attended a coronation of the King of Hungary and Croatia. On the return trip, some of her attendants were burned with molten iron and nearly tortured to death. They were sent ahead, barely alive, to Kurtzer, where some of them died shortly after arriving. And then
was this when the branding thing? Was this that incident, or am I thinking of a different one?
No, that's a different incident. So I actually didn't include that. One of the servant girls stole a coin.
Stole a coin.
And they heated the coin up so hot that it was almost molten. And they stuck it in her palm and closed her palm on it. So she wasn't able to open her hand again to let go of that coin.
Wow. Well, that'll teach you, you little shit.
Don't steal.
Don't do that again.
She seemed to be a fan of heating stuff up because on another trip, she gave two of her servants some appetizers that were sent from someone in Germany. And one of them was I think they were some kind of pear or something. And one of the girls, not thinking about it, ate it. And so the other one got heated up to such an extreme amount. And then she shoved it in her mouth. And then she pried the girl's mouth open to
Oh my
while
God.
it was still burning.
It's like eating a pizza roll
Yeah.
straight out of the oven.
Yeah, you don't do that either, man.
You have to wait. I don't care if it is 3.
I don't know. I don't think it's quite like, eating the pizza rolls right out of the oven, man. I think that
That's as
sounds
close as
way
I
the
can
fuck
get.
worse.
That's as close as I can get to
Jesus
thinking about
Christ.
the pain.
All right, think about grabbing a burning log and you're just like shoving it in your mouth, and then
Well, I've
maybe-
never done that though.
Well, I wouldn't recommend it.
Pizza rolls as close as I can get.
It sounds like Elizabeth just was causing other people pain. She sounds like that's kind of what got her rocks off.
Yeah, I think she's a little bit of a cunt. Yeah.
A little bit.
Especially if you happen to be thirsty.
She sounds like a
She's
Yes.
in a bad mood.
So Elizabeth set her permanent residence around 1609 in the Chetty Castle, and a reign of terror began for the nearby residents. It was a high honor for girls of the local families to be taken in by nobility to be an attendant. Unfortunately for these girls, this is also how Elizabeth got her victims. The Countess was soon unable to persuade girls to come to the castle. Can't really imagine why.
74.
Bad gas travels fast in this.
Yes, yeah.
So she opened a gymnasium
Yeah.
in the winter of 1609, and this brought funding and high-born young women. But before long, the families discovered that their daughters were missing, or they were not permitted to see them. In a matter of weeks, the entire finishing school had been wiped out. The explanation was that a girl had murdered all the rest of the girls because of her greed for jewelry. But once that girl was discovered by the staff, she then committed suicide.
Oh, wow.
It's wrapped up, guys. Let's go home.
Well,
Yeah.
well
Figured this shit out.
It's in the bag. Nobility told us it has to be true.
Right.
We're out.
So
and I wouldn't have got away with it, too, if you weren't for you meddling kids and that dirty dog.
there were a lot of stories around this time that I didn't include, not about murder, but about like family trying to see the kids and
Yeah.
that kind of stuff. That is all in the book also. So, but there were witnesses at this point to see what those girls had started looking like during these events. And other people had decided that this was a little too far. The excuse wasn't good enough. So they started flooding the King's Court with allegations against Elizabeth. And this just tickled the king because he still owed Elizabeth a shit ton of money.
Yep.
Oh, I wonder if that had anything to do with this.
Money that she kept asking for, right?
Yes.
Since her husband had died. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because they had fallen on hard times. Money was harder to come by.
Yep.
Her husband wasn't pillaging lands anymore and just bringing home all of the spoils of war. So it was extremely difficult for her to sell off the stuff that he had brought home because people just couldn't afford that kind of treasure.
Right.
So
Yeah, that and nobody wants to kick around a decapitated head like he used to do.
yeah, no, not at all.
I read that too. I didn't know how true it was, but I'm assuming it probably was.
Yeah.
So the normally meticulous countess was getting very sloppy. Girls were starting to be taken to town with bandaged hands, welts, bruises, burn scars. One young girl was actually able to escape, and when she arrived in town, she still had a knife buried in her foot.
Whoa.
So
I guess your adrenaline would pick up and you could run, but just thinking about running with a knife in your foot sounds
Yeah.
awful.
Doesn't sound like a lot of fun.
I think
It's
if
like
it
eating a
was-
pizza roll.
but with your foot.
When you drop a pizza roll on your foot and it's super
Yeah.
hot.
Yeah,
Same exact thing, basically.
same, same.
Sure. Okay.
I think when you're scared shitless, and you've been through that kind of torture and beating, I'd run with a knife in my foot. I'd be like, you know what, this is just
You-
going to remind me of what I'm what I'm fleeing from.
Yeah.
I'm
The
gonna
end
get
of the
there.
tunnel's coming. No more pain. I got to get through this part.
Yep.
So the elderly pastor, he was now at this point 90 years old.
Wow. Wait.
Yeah.
90 and
90.
and we're talking. What was the year?
1609.
It's like
Who
being
the fuck lives to
317 years old.
90?
Yeah. I'm pretty sure he is the only reported person to have lived that long.
Wow, that's fucking crazy. Okay.
His name was Reverend Andrew Barosius.
I think
He
his
wasn't
real name
accused
was,
of being
I
a
think his
witch.
real name was Count Dracula.
He became extremely concerned over the number of burials, and he even started to refuse to bury these people for the Countess.
Oh wow.
And when he went to question her, his questions were just left unanswered. So he started to keep detailed records of the bodies. He eventually told his successor, Reverend Janos Ponkensus.
What's that?
Sorry.
Hang on. What was that?
I have no idea. It's funny.
Punkinsus?
Yeah, I think that's what it says.
Nailed it.
Pumpkin sauce.
Pumpkin sauce?
No, I'm looking at it
start
right
calling
here.
him pumpkin sauce.
Pumpkin sauce.
Pumpkin sauce. Yeah, that's what it is. So he told Reverend Janos of the events and the rumors. And the new pastor was actually, so he wrote a letter to the Palatine, but it was intercepted by some of Elizabeth's people. And he started to fear for his life. But she was like, just shut up and bury my people. We'll be fine.
I won't kill you if you just keep doing what I tell you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or maybe I will.
Or maybe I will. He was eventually actually able to get a letter to King Matthew and to Palatine George Terzo.
It feels like the ring of King Matthew. That sounds nice.
I like his. I kind of wanted to leave his Hungarian name because it sounded better, and it's actually easy to say.
A Hungarian name that's easy to say.
Well, his name, it was King Matthias.
Matthias, yeah.
Oh, that's
But
And was he not some? Okay, so we didn't mention this before, but her parents were related, so she's pretty. They're all inbred. So
yeah,
but I believe she was also related to King Matthias, correct?
yes.
I don't think she
Yes.
got that big jawline that came later, though.
Or the huge schlong, schlonger nose. You thought I was going to go with the
Yes, I
other
did.
thing.
Yes,
So did I. I'm not even
No.
gonna lie. I was like,
Nope. I didn't do it. I'm trying to keep it clean.
I'm not gonna.
I haven't even said motherfucker once. Whoops. Never.
Yay. One.
2 points for Matt.
so at this point, legal steps were taken against the Countess, and they began in February of 1610. In March, orders went out for the court to begin interviews of every resident at Sarvar and at Ketski and any of the castles, any of the manors, any of the villages. They wanted information from these people. Unfortunately, go ahead.
Like 400 people came forward, correct?
Yes.
That's
Unfortunately for them, not one of those people had any sort of concrete anything. They all said, I heard, but no one had ever seen.
Oh, wow.
None of them had enough money to be taken serious.
That too. So that didn't matter to the court. They decided that they were going to move on with proceedings to try and bring charges against Elizabeth secretly. She found out about it. So
She's like a
She
mob
decided-
boss.
547.
So she decided that she was going to find one of the mothers of the girls that had died. She took her into the court while the court was being held in secret. And the mother testified that the girl had, in fact, died of cholera.
Oh,
So-
she wasn't testifying under any kind of pressure, though. I mean,
None.
free will.
Not at all.
Unless you died of cholera, you're going to die.
So courts didn't take the mother of the girl seriously, and Elizabeth found out about that too. So she started firing off a ton of letters to everyone that she could think of to help her. Just saying, what have I done to deserve this? I've done nothing but help everyone. You need to help me out of this. I don't know what's going on here. I'm pretty sure that the king's just trying to take over my land. And then she took off to, I cannot pronounce this castle.
Gray Skull.
Yeah, it's Kuritzer. Yeah, and on September. Well, it's weird because in the book, some of these things are translated, translated into English, but there are some that they're just
word for
exactly.
That language. I mean, I think Welsh is the only one above it that just puts so many consonants into a word and expects people to know what it is.
Yeah.
Well, and this was Hungarian in the 1600s, and they said that it's so close to a dead language at this point that very few people are left who can actually translate that.
Might as well be Sanskrit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So she took off to that castle, and on September 3rd, 1610, she wrote her last will and testament. She willed everything evenly between her 3 children, and when she did that, that stopped the crown from being able to take possession of any of their properties, their estates, anything. And then she took off and went to Sarvar estate, which is where she lived with her husband, and collected all of her valuables. She had all of those sent to Castle Chetty.
And the only thing she kept was her wedding dress,
Oh, yes.
which she said she was going to wear until the day she died.
Oddly
She's
enough.
not off her rocker at all at this point in time.
Not at
She's
all.
just fully there. Firing
Yeah.
on all cylinders.
Well, she's doing everything, and she's still running, even with all of this going on, she's still running all of the estates. She's still handling all of the tax bills. She's still fighting with the crown. She's still handling the business. So,
She's still not getting the money, she says.
yeah, she's still not getting paid. On December 29th, 1610, George Thurzor and his men entered Chete Manor and are said to have found the Countess eating dinner, and bodies of dead and dying girls were strewn about, while 4 of her accomplices were torturing girls.
While she sat there and ate dinner.
Well, she sat there and ate dinner.
No, that's
Dinner and a show then. Awesome.
that's some Count Dracula type, or Vlad the Impaler type shit.
Yeah. 621.
We're almost there.
So Elizabeth was then escorted up the hill to Chetty Castle and was made to watch while the men searched and cleared the premises. The men found numerous bodies at the castle as well. The accomplices were taken to Bidka Castle, and Elizabeth was taken back to the manor. The next day, the accomplices had their confessions tortured out of them, and Elizabeth was taken back to her castle for imprisonment.
It's one of my least favorite things, that'll torture them till they admit to it. But yeah, you'd admit to anything just
Right.
to get it to stop.
Yep.
So I am going to say trigger warning here for anyone who cannot handle what I am about to go into, because I am about to tell you about the torture. So
Right.
for everybody else who has to sit here, the confessions and eyewitnesses of staff member Benedict DeSeo gave us what we know of the methods of torture that they were using. This is one hell of a long list. It includes being washed and made to roll on the floor in nettles, pins stuck into their lips and under fingernails, needles jammed.
Okay. Ooh, let me look under the fingernails thing. All right. It's going to get to teeth here before too long, isn't it? All
It
right.
is. It is. Are you sure you want to stay? Okay.
Hell yeah. Let's go.
Needles were jammed into their shoulders and arms.
That's just
Flogging.
acupuncture.
Yeah, it's nothing. Floggings on the breasts of the young girls while they were being held in chains. Their hands and abdomens scorched with burning irons. Chunks of skin wrenched from their backs with pliers. Noses.
Oh. Just ripping out chunks of flesh with pliers.
Just-
All right.
They're just removing moles. It's fine.
Yeah.
It's fine.
No big whoop.
Basic
No big
surgery
whoop.
back in the day.
Noses, tongues, lips, and fingers were pierced with needles. Mouths were forced shut with clamps. Flesh was cut out from buttocks and from between the shoulders and then cooked and served to them.
Bacon.
Back bacon.
Go eat yourself. Okay.
Flesh and private parts were singed with candles. Knives were plunged into arms and feet. Hands were crushed and maimed. Fingers were cut off with scissors and shears. Red hot pokers were shoved up vaginas. Bodies were beaten to death with cudgels. Lashings were done.
Wait. Stop. You had me at pokers were stuck in vaginas.
Red hot pokers.
I'm assuming those are cauterized now.
Yeah, I don't think this is. I don't think this is the fun kind of poker.
Zach, every fucking episode she does.
Why you always got to bring up red hot pokers and vaginas?
100% of your episodes have mentioned that.
So sorry. Bodies were beaten to death with cudgels. Girls were lashed until the flesh was falling off of their bones. They were made to stand naked outside overnight or in water in freezing temperatures up to their necks. They also would be starved or deprived of drink. And when she would allow them to drink, they had to cup their hands under themselves to catch their urine, and that's what they were allowed to drink.
The original Bear Grylls.
And then to add insult to injury, she also frequently called the girls whores during the torture sessions. That was like her favorite thing to say.
Nice lady.
Yeah.
Super
Yeah,
nice.
she sounds very pleasant to be around.
Just
I definitely
lovely.
want to be left in her company for
Just lovely.
just a few minutes.
She also had a very particular set of skills.
Yes, she did. The accomplices.
If you're just gonna keep calling it back to my mind, because it's just like shoving a pizza roll up your twat.
What's that, Matt? I didn't catch that. Oh my god!
I think he's got to breathe.
Wait! Somebody help Matt! He's choking on a pizza roll over there.
It's an episode. This is the callback episode. Is what this is. I'm gonna say something stupid and then never stop saying it.
So the accomplices were taken to trial and asked the same questions. For the most part, they answered similarly. Most of the blame was placed on the now dead Anna Dervoila and on Esri Maharova. She was the forest witch.
Okay.
So each accomplice placed the death toll between 30 and 50 girls during the time with the Countess. However, there was a young girl named Susanna that testified that 650 girls had been killed and that she got that number from the records kept by the Countess herself.
Yep. Found it in a book in her room where she had written down the names of apparently every victim.
Yes.
And she said it numbered up to 650. That is fucking nuts.
That's a lot of blood.
That's a lot of pokers and vaginas.
That's a lot of pokers and vaginas.
Scary.
So George Thurzo had alleged that he had caught the Countess red-handed and that he would not allow her to appear in court or allow her to be interrogated. She was immediately found guilty, and on his authority, George pronounced her sentence. He said, "You, Elizabeth, are like a wild animal. You are in the last months of your life. You do not deserve to breathe the air on earth, or see the light of our Lord. You shall disappear from this work and shall never reappear in it again. As the shadows envelop you, may you find the time to repent your bestial life. I hereby condemn you, Lady of the Chetty, to lifelong imprisonment in your own castle."
Oh, how rough.
No.
So,
Send her to her room.
No. She hated to be alone, though.
yes.
That was the absolute one thing she hated, was to just be by herself. And
So he did like ban her to solitary then, basically. Or did she
Basically.
still have her servants?
No.
I mean, really, it's-
No, I believe they not like they covered all of her windows. They like bricked up all her windows, and she was fed through a door or like through a slot in the door.
So at this time, it was just imprisonment in the castle. So she was supposed to have been in either a tower or a dungeon, but she wasn't actually imprisoned just yet.
Okay.
So King Matthew was pissed that she was not put to death. He lobbied for a retrial, but then he found out that one, she had already done a last will and testament, which divided the property evenly between her kids, so he wasn't getting shit anyway.
Right.
And he also found out
That's pretty clever.
He also found out that his war hero was a part of this, and he did not want that to come about to the crown. So
Yeah.
he decided, you know what, actually, I'm going to cede. And cool. I'm not going to push this any further, but she was, he agreed to the terms that his debt to her was wiped out. A portion of her land did have to cede to him. Her files and name were to be removed from history, and that she be walled up inside her castle with only enough space for necessities to be passed through. She died in the late hours of August 21st, 1614, or the early hours of August 22nd, 1614. They're not 100% sure, but it is somewhere there because there was the guard on duty. 3 of the 4 accomplices were sentenced to death. Ilana Joe was restrained and had iron tongs clamped to her first finger, which was then wrenched out. Then the other 3 digits followed. She was then delivered a knockout blow, and they tossed her in the bonfire.
She's a rich burner.
Exactly. Dorothea suffered the same fate, and then Fitzko was the last, and he was beheaded, and then he was tossed into the bonfire. Catelyn was held in prison until her death because she didn't actually take part in any of the tortures.
But she was an accomplice, so
she was an accomplice. So she helped bury people.
Because if she didn't, she'd be getting buried.
Yeah. So if any of these people refused to do what the Countess told them to do, they were also tortured. So they would help her for just hours and hours on end. They said 6-hour sessions of torture where they would whip people like 500 times in a row. Just,
Imagine doing that. I mean, even if you're the one doing the whipping, like 500 times your arms.
man, it's kind of like putting in like 500 or 600 loads of Tostitos pizza rolls in the oven, and then you got to pull them out. God, can you imagine that?
Jeez, I know.
With no hot pads.
I get what you're saying now.
And then
now it makes sense.
Okay, does that make sense now?
They also tried.
How many pizza rolls?
They also tried Ursri Mahorva, the forest witch.
Nailed it.
For practicing black magic with the Countess. She is who was said to supply the Countess with her spells and her braided bread and wafer, that kind of stuff. So, and then they would go outside at night and lay down under the stars and cast spells against everyone for protection.
So what you're saying is she had a particular set of skills.
She did. She was burned at the stake as a witch. So, Elizabeth was known to be vain about her appearance, and she would sit in front of mirrors for hours. And if in a rage, she would go through a fit and she would smash all of the mirrors.
Oh, wow.
It has been said that she used sorcery to maintain her beauty and that she discovered blood as a skin cream when she struck a servant girl so hard that blood spattered back onto her face. It was said that when she wiped the blood away, her skin was porcelain and almost translucent and beautiful.
I shouldn't have wore sweatpants.
Initially, blood baths worked, but peasant blood wasn't strong enough, so the forest witch told her she needed to start using the blood of nobles. I do have to
Their
tell you
blood's
guys,
not even good enough.
no.
I got the feeling that that's all bullshit, and probably because she had killed so many of the peasant people's children that they were like, "Fuck you, lady. I'm not sending my kid to you." So then she had to go to a different pool.
Yes. Cool.
Well, no.
So legends of the bloodbaths did not come out until about 200 years after Elizabeth's death. And they were also never mentioned in the trials or through torture of any of the accomplices. It was, in fact, stated in testimony at trial that Elizabeth beat and murdered the girls, and it would drench her clothes, the floors, and beds. She would simply order it to be cleaned up and those items to be tossed. So the blood was never kept. And according to the book, she did not actually bathe in the blood.
Fucking, you just ruined it.
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. But if you want, we
Went from
can
noon to 6 now.
I got news. Hey, I got news for you. Ben Franklin's the fucking Jersey Devil, buddy.
There you go.
You know what I mean? So
You're telling me this is all bullshit, that it could all be bullshit, and it might just revolve around somebody owing somebody else money?
She probably totally killed up to 650 people. That is a fucking fact.
That was a lot of blood. And, you know, if it's the blood that does it for you, she was drenched head to toe in blood. So, and then, you know, she had to, like, change her clothes. So, it's also rumored that she was a vampire, which came from that she would bite large chunks of skin out of her victims. And that was how, if she was like bedridden or ill and it was torture time, they would bring the victims to her in her bed, and that would be the only thing that she could do. So she would just bite the shit out of people.
Okay, those people were complacent. That's you're not being forced to doing anything if she's so sick that she's in her bed and can't do anything. It's like, fuck, just put a pillow over her head.
Yeah.
End it
What
all.
are you doing? You don't have to listen at this point. It's like, hey, are you sick of this bitch? Yeah, me too. I don't want to kill anybody else, do you? No, not really.
Well, they did say that Anna and Ilona were extremely cruel themselves.
See, they had to be getting off on it too.
Yeah, Fitzko was he was taken to her. It's stated that he was taken to her in his infancy, and she raised him. And he was just kind of her, do whatever I say person, and I'll just let you have full reign of the castle.
I think most people call that a servant.
Yeah, but she treated him more like a child than an actual servant. Also, it was very taboo for males to be a servant to a female. It was also very taboo for females to be servants to males. So there was the count's court who only had male servants, and there was the female or the countess's court who only had female servants.
Did you say count?
Motherfucker. Oh, that's two. That's two motherfuckers.
That's two mothers. Yeah. Almost three, but just two.
you hit the brakes right at the
I did. Yeah.
So that is what I have on the torturing and murders from Miss Elizabeth, the Blood Countess.
Now, she was buried in a family plot, and then later her remains were exhumed and placed in a different burial area, and then from there they disappeared, right?
Allegedly. Oh, also back to your dress thing. So she was walled into the tower in her dress.
In her wedding
and
dress, yeah.
Because of the extent that it took to get into and out of clothes at that time, she was never able to take it off, and she was in there for 2.5 years.
I heard there was like ghost stories from that castle of the woman in white too that they thought was her.
I'm sure that there are roughly 650 ghost stories from that castle.
Yeah. More than likely. Yeah, it's crazy shit. What a fucking nutty bitch.
Yeah. So, if you really, really, really hate to travel, maybe don't take people with you to beat them.
Right?
Yeah.
And if you have social anxiety that bad, probably just don't go to parties.
Definitely don't drink.
Definitely don't drink.
Not a good idea.
Don't get thirsty.
Yeah, and definitely don't get thirsty around Miss Elizabeth Bathory.
Yes.
See, now I got that Metallica song in my head, and then I've got, from the beginning of the episode, I got the Beastie Boys in my head because Zach had to say she's crafty. I'm like,
Yeah. Oh, they've both been rolling around in my upstairs as well, man.
Yeah.
Well, that was pretty badass, Lindy.
Every fucking time.
Yeah, but I mean, maybe next time let's not talk about red hot pokers and vajayjays, and maybe we can not talk about 650 children being murdered. That'd be great.
And you wouldn't stop bringing up pizza rolls and shit.
Yeah,
It's
pizza
weird.
rolls would
It's
be great too. Yeah, Matt, why don't you go make some pizza rolls for me real quick?
I'm actually thinking about it.
Well, I guess my first episode, you have to go big. So
That's right. You
I'm
definitely
not sure how I'm going to live up to that. And that was definitely not easy to keep into a 45-minute piece.
Segment?
So,
You've got a whole week before you got to do another one. So
oh,
me and Zach are enjoying this role.
don't burn her out too quick, Matt.
I know.
Well, that was awesome. Thank you very much for that, Lindy. It was nice
thanks.
to take a break and just listen for once. Do you guys
It
have
was-
anything else you want to add before we sign off?
nope.
Nope. Matt,
I'm good.
you sure?
I think so.
Well, I would like to say, hey, guys, thanks for checking out another week of the podcast. We can, continue to rate, and review if you enjoy what you're listening to. And go check out the website. Hit us up. You can email us to the website. It's hmfppod.com. And we will have more content for you next week, every week.
And we've got
Every
new
Tuesday.
things to give away too if you've got listener stories, because we got things to send out. We'll have books. We'll have other things to send out if you guys can write in and tell us stories.
Yeah. We love the stories. So please, if you've got a story you'd like to share with us, shoot us an email. We'd love to hear from you.
Yes.
All right. Well, until next Tuesday, guys, I'm Zach,
Spar.
Lindy.
and we'll see you next Tuesday. Later.
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 It's evil! Don't touch it!
It's alive!
I was with you.
They're coming to get you. Tower of Christ. This is
Hello, Mr. Fancy Pants.
No, I see how it is. Does my mic even run through this? I've been replaced all fucking ready.
I don't know. I don't know what you're seeing, but you're way bigger than I am. What the fuck
I've
are you
been
doing?
working out.
Dude.
I lift weights. Well, as we're talking about Elizabeth Bathory, it's probably going to get a little bigger.
Hey. Like I said, easy with the pillow talk there, baby.
I just went from 6 to noon at the mention of her name.
Not to be a dick.
But we're
Okay,
going to
here
do
we
that
go.
again.
Oh, try having me record an album with you.
Not
No,
to
do it
be a
again.
dick, but I'm a dick. So
Do it again.
Yeah.
Bitchy the clown over there.
yes, that's me, Bitchy the Clown.